Hello and welcome to Cookie Tech. Today we're going to be talking about all the latest OnePlus 9 rumours surrounding the new flagship phone from OnePlus. The first rumour, which is pretty much confirmed, is that OnePlus is going to be continuing their food-inspired internal names for their devices. So the OnePlus 9 is said to be called the OnePlus Lemonade internally. Just for reference, the OnePlus 8 was called Insta Noodle internally, and the OnePlus 8T, I think it was called the OnePlus Kebab. So it's actually quite funny, I like it. In terms of the namings of the device, we don't really have any confirmation it's going to be called the OnePlus 9, but OnePlus has been very consistent with their naming structure. So I think it would be really unlikely they would change the name. I think it is just going to be the OnePlus 9, OnePlus 9 Pro, etc. The third rumour is, according to a report from October last year, OnePlus is going to be releasing their device this year 1 month early. So OnePlus usually launches around mid-April. I think last year their launch was the 15th of April. This year it's said to be in March, which is very exciting. That's literally like 2 weeks away from when we could be getting the new OnePlus device. Personally, I am all for that because I was not that taken back by the recent OnePlus. There wasn't that many upgrades from my 7 Pro. I've had my faithful 7 Pro for a few years now, and I think I'm ready to upgrade it to something else, but I need a reason to upgrade it. Do you know what I mean? The OnePlus 7 Pro is an amazing phone, and I personally felt quite sad that they got rid of the pop-up camera because I've had it for 2 years pretty much, and I've never had any problems with the pop-up camera. It's really convenient. It keeps it clean. It never gets oily or greasy, and it also means I don't have a pinhole camera staring at me. Let's talk about the design because this is what I get super interested about. I always think, how are they going to innovate? How are they going to change it? Recently, phone manufacturers just add and tweak very small things like the camera placement and stuff like that. It doesn't look like OnePlus is differing from this. It just looks like a camera placement change. So on November 14th, there was a leaked CAD design of the OnePlus 9. I'm going to put it full screen now. It looks like we have 3 cameras on the back of the phone and a pinhole camera on the front of the phone, which kind of makes sense, but it also looks actually like one of those cameras on the back might just be like a depth sensor because it looks very small compared to the others. So that could mean that we might just be getting a wide angle and a usual focal length camera. What do you think about this? Because I've always noticed with OnePlus phones, I had the OnePlus 3 like years and years ago, and the camera really wasn't that good. Part of me feels like I'd rather have one really good camera like on the Google Pixel than 3 cameras where only one of them is really good and 2 of them are kind of subpar. Now, I'll be the first to say I really like the fact that my OnePlus 7 Pro has 3 cameras. I actually use all 3 of them all the time. When they first released the phone, you couldn't do video with all 3 of them, which is kind of disappointing, but they upgraded it so you can. So if I'm taking pictures and videos of a room that I'm renovating in my house, for example, it's so convenient to switch to the ultra wide lens, or for zooming into things that are really high up in the room, going into the zoom lens is super convenient. So I think if they're going to lose a lens, I personally would rather them lose the zoom lens than the ultra wide lens. What do you think? I also feel like I'm fine with them losing a lens if it means they can keep the price the same and at the same time also increase the quality of the camera. But I think we've all seen by now, it's not just the quality of the camera from the sensor, it's all about the software processing, and especially with Google Pixel, they're not using the latest cameras in their phones from Sony, but they still produce some of the best images in the smartphone camera space. So that's even compared to Apple, who are charging like 1.2, 1.5k for their devices here in the UK. So I definitely think, a bit like audio on old OnePluses, it's really going to be perfecting the software, and it's definitely got better. I remember when the OnePlus 7 first came out, the software was so bad for the camera, but within a few weeks they updated it and it was much better. So I personally don't care if it's not a 61 megapixel camera. I'm happy if it's a 12 megapixel because realistically pixels don't matter that much. The bigger the pixel, the more light hits it, the better quality the image. And I think this fight for who has the highest megapixels is a bit silly, especially when the sensors are only this big because they're just so noisy. Like, I shoot with a 61 megapixel camera right now, but the sensor is this big. So the quality is going to be great because it has loads of light getting in. But on smartphones, I constantly see people talking about rumors and saying, well, we want to see a higher megapixel camera in the OnePlus. And I'm sat there thinking, you know what? Can we just improve the image quality? 16 megapixel is fine. 24 megapixel is fine. That's what some DSLRs had 5 years ago, and you could print those pictures in magazines. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather just focus on the quality of the image and the image processing. I don't care about megapixel. And often, like, this has a quite high megapixel camera. You have to use the Pro mode to access the full megapixel and save it with that megapixel. So again, it's just kind of like, no one's ever going to do that. So yeah, I do just hope that OnePlus innovate in this respect and don't just follow the trend of increasing the megapixel. Again, what do you think about that? Are you quite big on megapixel? Are you more of like an image quality guy? So this render is by Steve Hemmerstoff. He is a renowned leaker, and this is a render of the OnePlus 9. Now, we are expecting, as usual, a OnePlus 9 Pro variant, but what they do with the pricing this year is going to be super interesting because they've been steadily increasing their pricing, and OnePlus's value proposition has always been almost being the little guy, like really coming in and beating those big brands, producing like excellent quality phones with really good hardware, with really good software, but not charging really extortionate prices. But the OnePlus 8 Pro, for example, their pricing structure was really bad. And I think there was a huge outrage in the OnePlus community, especially in India. Now, they've released this Nord collection, which is really similar to the Pro collection, but just a bit cheaper, and the hardware and stuff is a bit cheaper. But me personally, just my perspective, if I'm buying like a non-iPhone, non-Samsung, I don't want to be buying a mid-range phone. Like I want the top end of what the competitor is offering, and I still want to pay less than Samsung and Apple, because that's the point. That's how they're competitive. Because if you're producing the same hardware, the same software, the same experience at the same price, there's no reason for me to choose OnePlus over Samsung and over Apple. And I think I say this because I love OnePlus and I've supported them since they were a really small little brand, and I don't really want to buy from anyone else, and that's why I'm a bit harsh on them, because I don't want OnePlus to think they can just keep increasing the prices up to like $1,000, $2,000, $1,500 just for the sake of it, just for the sake of minor improvements for every device. Because for me personally, I will go and support another brand like one of OnePlus's sister brands that produces very similar hardware, very similar packages for 20-30% less. Now, Oppo is a sister brand of OnePlus. They're owned by the same big company, but they do innovate their phones separately in different labs and stuff like that. And the Oppo Reno 5 looks very similar to the OnePlus 9 renders. I'm going to put on the screen here. This is the OnePlus 9 render from the big leaker, and this is the Oppo Reno 5. So you can see there's a lot of similarities. So this almost gets me thinking, well, if the pricing is a bit crazy on the OnePlus Pro, I can always head over to Oppo, see what they've got to offer. They're not going to be the same. OnePlus will have like a bit better, faster charging and stuff like that, but realistically, I think they will be very similar. Finally, there has been rumors that OnePlus is going to be releasing a lower end device alongside the OnePlus 9 and the OnePlus 9 Pro. At first they were calling it the OnePlus 9E, and now they're thinking it might be called the OnePlus 9R in the rumors, but this will be giving another offering. It could be a slightly smaller phone. I personally don't think it will be smaller because they have this format. I think they'll use the same molds, the same packaging, the same screens. It's cheaper for them to just reuse the same things, right, in terms of order quantities and stuff like that. But I imagine potentially they might use an off-brand camera instead of a Sony camera, and maybe very small minor things. It might have a bit slower charging or something. I'm not too sure. For me personally, the OnePlus fast charge is one of the best things to ever exist. Like, the only thing that I find a bit depressing is OnePlus decided in the UK that they would charge £50 for their chargers, which is about $75, I think, in the US. I get that it's fast, but $50, like, this is a brand that, you know, came from China, from humble beginnings. I feel like that's 15% of what their phones used to cost, and it's just a charger. So, for example, I didn't buy any more chargers than the one that came in the box, you know, for the Warp charger, for the super fast one. I instead bought a couple of extra dash chargers because I already had some dash chargers from our OnePlus 3. Dash chargers like 30 watts, and I think the other one is 50. So they're a bit slower, which is disappointing. I can't access the full potential of my phone. But if I was to buy 3 chargers for my OnePlus phone, just for around the house and one for my car, it would cost me £150. That's like $210 for a phone charger. What? Do you know what I mean? I did just think that was a little bit crazy. Also, I'm sorry, my screen turned off. I feel like that just ruined my background. The OnePlus 9 and the OnePlus 9 Pro will most likely be shipped with the Snapdragon 888 processor, which is the new 2021 line, although the cheaper variant, the OnePlus 9E or the OnePlus 9R, will most likely be shipped with a slightly older processor that will still have great performance. As usual, we're expecting 8GB of RAM in all models and around 128GB of storage. In addition to that, following trends, we're also expecting on having a 12GB option RAM with the OnePlus 9 Pro, very much like all the previous models. Now, storage is going to be really interesting because phone manufacturers have been cutting down on the size of their storage. We had a period a while back where we were getting like phones with half a terabyte of storage, which was great. But now phone manufacturers are really pushing for people to move to the cloud. And personally, I do find it like a little bit irritating. So I feel like technology has advanced so much now and storage is much cheaper, you know, to manufacture. You know, like hard drives used to be expensive and it just gets cheaper and cheaper because it's manufactured in higher volumes and everyone has access to it. Same with SSDs. So part of me does feel a little bit like we should be getting phones with a terabyte of storage now. Like, I pay for Google backup storage where my photos get sent to the cloud, but sometimes it's inconvenient that my photos aren't on my phone because if the internet isn't high speed or I have issues with my Wi-Fi, which sometimes happens for most people, I can't access things I quickly need to access, and I'd rather they were on my phone. So I don't need like 10 terabytes of storage. I personally wish OnePlus would move up a stage and with their Pro models offer 256 gigabyte storage as the base model and half a terabyte as the upper stage 12 gigabyte RAM model. I just think that would be fair for the prices that they're charging in today's money. In terms of the display, we are expecting the fairly standard now 120 Hz refresh rate. We're expecting to see OLED panels in the entire lineup as per usual OnePlus phones, but it depends if they do want to save extra money on the OnePlus 9, they might reduce that down. There's been some talk of the OnePlus 9 Pro having adaptive 120 Hz refresh rate, which means you can get better battery life, very much like they have with the 90 Hz refresh rate in the OnePlus 7 Pro, the OnePlus 8, OnePlus 8 Pro. But I also feel like it would be strange for them to not include that feature on the normal OnePlus 9. Like, why wouldn't you include a software feature that helps to save battery? I think it would be strange for them not to, but there has been a rumor that they weren't going to include that on the standard 9 model, which means you wouldn't get quite as good battery life. In terms of the charging, this is a huge pro for the OnePlus Pro. We are expecting the 65-watt charger at minimum across all three devices. OnePlus is not usually stingy with their offering of speed of charging. So definitely one thing that's going to be super interesting is if they include the charger in the box, because if not, we could be looking at some seriously high prices to buy a charger which doesn't come with the phone, which I personally think would be really disappointing. I get that phone manufacturers aren't including bricks now, and it's really likely the OnePlus might do that as well. With the amount that OnePlus are charging for their bricks, you're going to have to really consider if it's worth buying a OnePlus based on needing to purchase an additional charger. Say, for example, I mean, if the phone is £600 and then the charger is an extra £60, you're paying an extra 10% on the price of the phone for the charger. Like, think about that when you add up the numbers, when there's brands like Oppo, Redmi, and various other brands out there to choose from. The OnePlus 8 Pro came with 35-watt wireless charging, but we could be seeing a bump up to 45-watt wireless charging, which is insane when you think that Apple devices wired still only get very, very low powered wireless, like normal charging, not even wireless. So it's kind of funny that like OnePlus phones can charge faster wirelessly than most iPhones can, like plugged in, the out of box charger, which doesn't even come in the box anymore. I haven't used any wireless charging phones. My 7 Pro does not come with wireless charging, but if it was accessible and they're not charging like $200 for the wireless charging station, I'll definitely consider it. Again, I have no problem spending money on things. Like, I'm shooting this video right now with some pretty expensive equipment as per usual. I'm a big fan of production equipment, but it's worth it for me. Whereas like spending an extra $200 on a phone charger or an extra $100 on like an extra charger for my toilet so I can play Flappy Birds while I'm shitting. Do you know what I mean? Like, is it worth it? Is this a good value proposition? In terms of the cameras, the CEO of OnePlus, Pete, has been talking about heavily investing in the camera, so we don't know whether that means necessarily software or hardware, but given my experience with OnePlus, I do think it's mostly going to be software for their main camera at least. Now, OnePlus does have a history of using a decent main camera, but their zoom camera and their wide-angle cameras are often just complete trash, and I'm sorry to say that, but their wide angles have historically just been terrible. They've kind of just included it for the sake of it, which is a bit disappointing because we use the wide angle. I personally do rely on it. So it would be good if it had a bit more functionality. I don't need it to do like 51 megapixel sunsets to print onto a canvas, do you know what I mean? But when I'm shooting, a room for a house or I'm renovating something, I need a decent pixel size so that the image is clear and it's not super cloudy and soft and dark and pixelated and noisy. And I kind of feel like I wish that they would go that extra step. It doesn't need to be a brand new top of the line Sony camera, but definitely something with a bit of a bigger sensor, just a better image basically, especially for video. Let's round up today's video by talking about the price rumors, because this is important with a brand that we associate with undercutting the big greedy brands that have been upping their prices for years without offering that much more for your money. We are expecting the OnePlus 9 base price to begin around £549, which is around $649 in the US. We're expecting the OnePlus 9 Pro to arrive around £749 in the UK, which is £849 in the US. Now, I think it's also important to remember most people are not going to be choosing the base model of the OnePlus 7 Pro. I think the kind of people that are willing to invest the extra money into the Pro model do want the extra storage and the extra RAM, which means it's most likely going to bump up again. If you are new to Cookie Tech, please be sure to smash the like button, and if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing to keep up to date with all the latest OnePlus and tech rumors and reviews. Are you happy with the rumors? Are you happy with what could potentially be coming in the next month? I am so excited to see what OnePlus come up with, and hopefully I'm going to be finding a sister for my OnePlus 7 Pro and my OnePlus 3. I want to say a huge thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.